Welcome to Clever Orbits. This is Louis Brandmeier on the line with Tyler Brandmeier.
Hey, y'all.
And Dr. Richard Futrell.
Good evening.
And tonight we are investigating Maps and Legends, Episode 2 of Season 1 of Star Trek: Picard. Richard, what did you think of this episode?
I got a question.
What's your question?
What's old and played by Patrick Stewart?
Richard! Sheer fucking hubris!
Comment of the day.
That should have been Admiral Nechayev.
Quote of the year. Oh, God.
Just think about that.
I think my theory is that Nechayev has been saying things like that so often that she was assassinated very early on in her career as an admiral. People just got pissed with her enough to where they were like, we don't want any more of you.
How did she become an admiral?
How did Admiral Kirsten become an admiral? Is that what you're asking?
I was thinking of Nechayev, but I guess we should stay on topic.
Oh, well, yeah, that's another great question. She doesn't seem very politically sensitive, Admiral Nechayev.
Okay, how did a Romulan agent, or whatever she is, get to be in charge?
They get to be a Commodore, in fact.
It is a cool throwback to the original series that they have Commodores again.
It's interesting. It's like, why do we suddenly have Commodores? Or maybe they've had Commodores the whole time. They're just like so arcane.
It's part of this retro craze, like those shuttles that they have from Discovery. Star Trek.
Yes.
Some kind of retro craze.
So what? I mean, I understand the shuttlecraft changing back, but like, what in the functional administration of Starfleet would be sufficient to induce a change in the nature of the chain of command to where they add a new rank back in?
Oh, they're just trying to follow the fashions, trying to stay relevant with teens. Maybe they're serving.
Yeah, that guy at the front desk seemed like he was a teen, or maybe early 20s.
I think he was just happy to have a job.
Yeah, he also did look like he was happy to have a job.
I think the title of this episode should have been Visitor Pass.
Oh, you know what? That works.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of a visitor to Picard's life, and he's only a visitor to his old life. This is no longer your house, Jean-Luc.
That's right.
Do what you do best and go home.
Especially because he's not going to be able to drive those new retro shuttles they've got.
Yes, because according to Nemesis, that's one of his favorite things to do.
His off-roading.
His off-road thing, yes.
Unsafe velocities.
Driving at unsafe velocities, exactly.
Yeah. Real in character.
So there's a lot going on in this episode. There's a lot that I really appreciated. Obviously, the sheer fucking hubris was completely unnecessary. I mean, she could have said sheer hubris with the same level of anger and frustration, and it would have conveyed.
At least she didn't make a reference to an all-access pass.
I mean,
so fucking cool.
Maybe that visitor pass that they gave Picard, maybe that was some kind of esoteric reference to CBS All Access.
Maybe. Well, here's the thing, though, Richard. He was denied. So.
Yeah, he was like the people that just sign up for like the week, the free week or whatever. Is there a free week? I don't even remember.
Or they sign up for the version that Steven uses, where you get interrupted every 5 minutes by a commercial and you can't stop it.
Yeah,
you can't rewind.
Picard with that visitor pass, that's like you with CBS All Access with commercials mode.
I mean, yes. So, all right. Let's see. I like the Jat Vache, even though I'm pretty clear that no one knows how to spell it.
What are you talking about?
The Jat Vache.
That's like the first word they teach you when you're doing phonics.
Yes.
Actually, you know what?
When you get to the right Romulan letter of za.
Oh, the letter za. The letter za.
Yes, the first letter of the Romulan alphabet.
Richard, do you actually know Romulan?
No, I know no Romulan.
Oh, it was
I have
really
a smattering of Klingon, and I know no Romulan.
I'm curious. I think there is, in fact, a website for the Romulan alphabet, and then there is a Romulan Language Federation. I think I'd rather learn Romulan, honestly.
I mean, it has a lot less screen time. That's the problem with it.
Mehre Esve. It means call the police. Jolan True. Dada. Ekesai. Okay, so clearly our listeners didn't tune in for me to read off useful Romulan phrases.
So what are we talking about?
Well, the opening was beautiful. Let's start there. When F8, otherwise known as the Hand of Fate, kills a bunch of people and receives a downloaded reprogram from whoever it is that marshaled the synths in order to damage the rescue efforts of the Federation. I think
obliterate the rescue efforts.
Yeah, obliterate. I did. So there were a couple feelings that I had during that scene. One, I was obviously, just like the rest of those people, really creeped out by this android. It was very difficult to be sympathetic to him. And in fact, this is probably what would happen, one imagines, to most of the Soong-type androids. Racism naturally develops where understanding doesn't exist. And it was pretty clear, even as far back as data lore, that Picard had to stand really firm against even unconscious racism on the part of the Next Generation crew. Like, when they first encounter Lore, Riker and Geordi are very uncomfortable with asking Data about his parts. And it's like a depersonalizing thing that's happening to him. And Picard makes the very same argument that he makes in The Measure of a Man, which is, we too are machines, just machines of a different type, of an electrochemical nature. And that makes Data no less a person. And so you notice that Picard had to take the moral high ground throughout the Next Generation, that Data has rights, that Data gets to keep his daughter, that Data gets to stay in Starfleet and not be disassembled if he wants, that Data needs to be treated like a person, that if something goes wrong with Data, which, by the way, there are videos on YouTube making fun of the fact that Picard did lose trust in Data throughout the series, like a time when Data took over the Enterprise. And the point that Picard was actually making was that in those circumstances, it was really clear that Data's programming was compromised and not his personality. So Data as a being, as a sentient entity and organism, is intrinsically trustworthy to Picard. Now, these other Soong-type androids, they didn't get enculturated properly. They were treated like plastic people, as the guy says in the beginning. And they're worth so much more than that. They're capable of so much more than that. And even if they were only somewhere between B4 and Data in terms of intelligence, skill, and capability, they still had the ability to become more than they were if their, so to speak, regulator was removed. Like if they were no longer just merely tools and controls. And this is exactly what Guinan was afraid of in Measure of a Man. She said, just imagine a whole class of, what did she call it? Disposable people. And that's what these people are. So, like, yeah.
Okay. I hear what you're saying.
Go ahead.
And here's the counter argument. They are disposable people. They don't have feelings.
But they could. And so one ought to treat them as if they might.
I mean, why?
Okay, so if this is great. Richard, by the way, the fact that we're having this conversation means that Picard has succeeded as a Star Trek episode. It does. Can you remember when we ever had this clearly defined of a philosophical argument around a Discovery episode?
No, it never happened.
it never happened.
It will never happen.
Have you ever walked out into the middle of a parking lot only to realize that you don't know where you parked your car?
Now that's an important question.
It's important to Discovery.
How much would you be paid to spend a night in a cemetery?
All right, so back to it. I mean, so you claimed that anything is trustworthy because it's an organism or because it has the potential to be an organism. I don't see why that
data
bothers.
became
These things are programmed. They're programmed. And
data
might
became
be programmed
a person.
Malicious.
Data. So we know this from Landmark, right? Who you are is a function of how your environment, particularly the other people able to speak about you in your environment, like see you and view you and experience you. Data became a person because they treated him as one. These people never had the opportunity to become people because they were merely treated as tools.
I mean, that's how
the conversation.
These are not humans. These
well,
are
so the difference is
to be a certain way.
The difference is, I'm just saying, and I'm not defending what they did, by the way, because I know you've been living on that asbestos tent on the surface of Mars ever since it happened.
It is true. I kind of have some skin in this game, and in fact, my skin is currently being torn off of me by the burning fires of the atmosphere of Mars. So I'm joining you from a position of intense pain.
Richard, since our last episode, I sent you a shuttlecraft. Why have you not left the surface of Mars?
I didn't get the memo.
I will send you another shuttlecraft.
I don't get green text.
Tyler, in case you don't know, Richard has been living on the surface of Mars since the attack of the synths. As some kind of a bizarre protest against, I don't know, civilized living.
How do you combat the fires?
Oh, I live in an asbestos tent.
But asbestos destroys lungs. Do you know that, Richard? You've been slowly dying for 14 years.
There are times where the situation demands that for the greater good, certain sacrifices are made.
Like the Jacques Vache did through the synths of their own rescue fleet for Romulus. Because I would venture to suppose they, thousands and thousands of years ago, by the way, they've existed for thousands and thousands of years, according to Laris, they created the Borg. And this is such a nameless, unspeakable, loathing-filling secret that they have been trying to make up for it ever since by eliminating all artificial life. Or at least this is a theory that I read online that I think I really like.
Yeah, I've read that. I don't so much like that theory because it kind of makes the universe small, you know? If everything that we know about was created by this small number of species that were introduced in the first show, I like the idea that the Borg are just a sort of growth that happened in the Delta Quadrant, and their origin is inexplicable.
I'd be okay with that.
The other theory I've heard is that what the secret the Jacques Vache are hiding is that either the Romulans or the Vulcans are a synthetic version of the other.
How is that possible?
So, they're biosynths, right? It's like how the blonde doctor was saying that, there would be a slam dunk to create a machine which is both made out of flesh and blood and synthetic, and they're working on this research project for unclear reasons other than that it would be cool. But, yeah, the idea is that the Romulans or the Vulcans are a biosynthetic version of the other one.
Mm.
And it would make sense if the Romulans are the synthetic ones, because then they maybe have this self-loathing because they hate that they're not real or something. But it would also make more sense for the Vulcans to be the machines because they're logical. On the other hand, they reproduce. We've seen half human, half Vulcan characters, a few prominent ones.
Yeah, that would mean Spock is a machine.
I mean,
yeah, that would make Tasha Yar's daughter a machine as well.
Tasha Yar is half Romulan, or her daughter. Denise Crosby.
Sela.
Yeah, Denise Crosby is half
Commander
Romulan.
Sela.
We didn't know this.
Denise Crosby is actually a robot.
All
right, so back to the episode.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't need to speculate necessarily. It's clearly something that they're going to answer because it's a really good question. Or at least I hope they do, right? But I like the new L cars. Did anybody notice the new L cars?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I need it in my life.
I like the Holotech and the L cars. I think they're both really cool. I think let's see, the AI hatred that Romulans have, Richard. It reminded me a lot of Dune, and the what do you call it? The thinking machines that have been banned.
Yeah.
The Butlerian Jihad.
The Butlerian Jihad.
Yes. Which hopefully Picard has a more interesting spin than Dune and Battlestar Galactica. I mean, otherwise this is just going to be boring real fast. But yeah. So we have a really great metaphysical issue, which is, are androids people, and what sets Data apart where he's a person, whereas these were not? Because Data was clearly a person. So was Lore. So was Data's mother.
I think
even to the point where.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, so in Inheritance, the seventh season episode of Next Gen, Data decides, in order to protect the personhood of his mother, to not tell her that she's an android after discovering that she is. And then we find out from her that there were two other androids produced by Noonien Soong. And they both parents, Juliana Moore and Noonien Soong, had the experience of these two as children. So, like, is it just a trick of the eye? Is it trompe l'oeil? Is it like someone seeing an illusion where it isn't there, that all these beings are treated as people? Or are they actually people? And I think Data clearly is a person. I think Lore clearly is a person. Maybe not B4. Well, B4 does seem to be like a child person. So if the raw material that made up B4 is a person, then all these other quote-unquote plastic people are persons as well, and they should be given the opportunity to choose for themselves what they should be doing. And you know, that there are these people on the skeleton crew. That was weird. Like suddenly there's a class system within the Federation, and these people are like the blue-collar workers who are working the holidays. Like,
yeah,
what's with that? I did get a perverse thrill out of F8 shooting them and the security officers.
You sided with him?
Well, in that moment, I thought those phaser bursts were very clean and very deadly.
No wonder
really
you're arguing for the sin.
Well, so I also think it's interesting that most of the phasers and weapons in the future are double-barreled. Like I mean, it's just a trend. Like, apparently one barrel is not enough, except he only seemed to be firing one beam. So anyway, and I like that they just have a phaser. Well,
why
yeah,
did they have
maybe
phasers in that facility? I think it was a cutter. It was some kind of, cutter.
Yeah, maybe it was just a cutter. I was thinking that too. I was like, what is a thing like that doing on the wall?
Yeah.
And it also,
it's their tool.
They are.
And he killed them with it.
Whoever, probably Bruce Maddox, was programming these Soong-type androids didn't really do very, very good on, like, making their behavior not creepy because, like, F8 just kind of hangs out staring into nothing during lunch. I mean, that's not the way a person acts. You want to have him act, and maybe here's the thing. Maybe all these Soong-type androids, because of the way that they were found or programmed or turned on or something, they never had the same aspiration that Data had to be a person, like Pinocchio, to be a real boy, right? So, like, maybe it was a mixture of Data's aspiration to be a human that made the people around him treat him as a person and eventually recognize his status as a sovereign, sentient being. Whereas these beings, they never had that opportunity. Their culture was set up in such a way that they were just kind of freakish, kind of creepy, people-like non-people.
Well, they were programmed that way. I don't think they were intentionally made creepy. It's that it's hard to get it right. You know, all the little movements you make, these micro gestures you make during conversations, it's very hard to imitate that. This is why, like, CGI people still don't look totally realistic. You have to have an actual actor act, and then you map the actor's motion onto the CGI. You can't just generate a CGI person from nothing without it looking just a little bit off, right? It's the uncanny valley. You know this concept?
Yes. It's why Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia in Rogue One look kind of off.
Yeah, there's always something, and that's what we're seeing here. Except it's even harder to get it right because in a CGI thing, you just generate an image. In this case, you have to actually make the robot.
And all the behaviors, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the beginnings. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say this. I think this really brings the ethical issues up in a much more visceral way than with Data. Because when you see Data on the screen, he's clearly a human, right? And they're having a philosophical argument about, is this a real person or not? But, I mean, it's played by a human. He looks like a human. You know, you don't viscerally feel like he's something other than human. He's just pasty and acts kind of weird. Whereas this thing on the screen, F8, he is really creepy. Like, I'm looking at him thinking, I would not want to be friends with this guy because he's genuinely creepy. And when there are androids, that's what they're going to be like. It's much more challenging to have empathy for this guy than for Data.
Well, so, like, the beginnings of Data's personalization, like becoming a person, you see in F8. You see he's kind of trying to try on the mannerisms and behaviors of the humans, from the crow's feet, including non-social smile. Like, his whole face contorts in exactly the shape that we would hope to see on a real human being laughing at a legitimate joke. Except the timing is off. The timing is off, which makes it all the worse. Like, he's able to look happy for just a brief second, but the fact that he does it and then he does it, turns it off so quickly, it's like, what?
Yeah.
And then, hell yeah. Like, that was hell yeah. Like, okay. And that was as cute as it was when Data would do stuff like that. It was like, he's maybe trying and failing miserably. Now, of course, here's the other thing about F8. F8 is retroactively creepy in the same way that Lore is because he committed this horrible atrocity or participated in it. So we have the negative association with him, and we kind of don't want him to be a person on that basis.
I think the evidence that he is at least trying to be more like a person, or that there is a person in there, is that he killed himself.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure that he didn't do that. I mean, in which case it was a little sad. And, like,
the program has no reason to kill him off because this thing's about to blow up. He's about to die anyway. It must have been his own decision. And the only reason he would have done it is out of guilt. Or breaking one of the three Asimovian robot rules, right? Yeah, but guilt is just the biological version of that that's built into us. I mean,
thou shalt not harm thy creators. Yes.
Yeah. Humans feel bad when they kill people, and presumably robots will be programmed in the same way if we're smart.
So that at least they'll be guilt-ridden after they've killed us all.
Yeah, and then, it might prevent them from doing it because they don't want to feel that guilt in the same way that,
Well, they'll just figure out a clever way to eliminate that subroutine. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, if they can hack themselves. Yeah, that's. I mean, okay. So this is another, I think, legitimate argument against synth personhood, or the idea that we should treat synths as people. They're hackable. They can be hacked like Data and Lore, and no amount of programming is going to make them not hackable like this.
Wait a second. Data was still a person. He just okay. So
he was,
other people on Star Trek. Other people on Star Trek have been the victims of mind control before. Everything from the Regulan bloodworms in Star Trek 2 to the what is that thing from that 7th season episode of Voyager where Pactem Batane, the guy, the Bajoran guy, sends a call signal to the Maquis that like brainwashes them and turns them all into Manchurian candidates. I mean, like, just the idea that somebody can be brainwashed or manipulated or controlled does not negate their personhood. In fact,
it doesn't.
I point to all the marketing that I do.
Okay.
As proof. And it's
not. I appreciate your point.
My marketing is education based. It's not actually manipulative. But anyway.
Yeah, it's not. And the fact is that we don't currently, there's this idea in shows that you can like show someone flashing lights or something and it'll totally reprogram everything and make them go kill their family. That doesn't actually happen. That doesn't actually exist. Like there is a flashing light treatment for PTSD that is effective, but you can't like implant a memory or anything. Humans aren't really hackable like this, or we know how to do small things. We can sort of nudge you towards buying a certain brand of underwear or something, but we don't know how to do like what Data did in that one where he took over the Enterprise. We don't know how to put that in someone. And look, I'm not saying that they're not. So here's the scenario. Imagine that there's some guy walking around, and he has a thing around his neck, and it's a random number generator, and it generates numbers. And if it ever generates 3 9s, it's going to blow up in a nuclear explosion. It's just dangerous to be around this guy, right? In the same way, it's dangerous to be around synths because they're hackable like this, and they can cause these horrible disasters if malicious actors hack into them.
Well,
so you don't want to be friends with such a person, right? You wouldn't want to hang out with a guy with
that, but all artificial intelligence is subject to the same damage or the same issue. Even Siri, even Alexa.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing that they're not in charge of mission-critical
anything important. Yeah.
Yeah. They just tell jokes and turn on your TV.
So we need a tiebreaker here, Richard, because I hear that you're against the synths being people. I'm for it. Tyler, what do you think?
Well, I think. I think we should define people.
What are the necessary and sufficient conditions for the existence of a person?
This is where it gets hard. This is where it stops being fun. You want us to actually come to a conclusion that's like usable? Okay. Okay, well, we can try.
At our discretion. I don't know if you guys really want to, but reluctantly have to morally.
We can gather data. LOL.
Agreed.
Data is definitely a person. B4 is maybe a person. F8 is maybe a person. The Doctor is definitely a person.
Wait, have you guys noticed F8, Fate?
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. Sorry, I wasn't clear enough for you to notice.
Hey, guys, just reiterating what Lewis said earlier, because I couldn't hear things, because I have wax in my ears.
That's okay. Okay, so according to Webster's thefreedictionary.com, a person is a being characterized by consciousness, rationality, and a moral sense, and traditionally thought of as consisting of both a body and a mind or soul.
I mean, you can't really define these things.
Yeah, well, let's just make this a special, because this is no longer about the episode. This is a much broader conversation. Let's leave this as a to be continued, and maybe make it Clever Orbits' first philosophical debate episode. We can do it separately. How's that sound?
Sure.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. So back to this episode. I'm so curious how whatever happened to the cube happened and why the damage is there. And I also, was very full of enjoyment at okay, so let's go to the other deeply philosophical part of this episode, which is this great political issue where, Admiral Picard decides to resign Starfleet because after the ships are destroyed, he sees that the Federation is not going to help the Romulans, and so he's trying to protest, but apparently Admiral Critson is really pissed because, it was about the internal stability of the Federation versus saving the Romulans, which I took to be either you pander to a sort of global racism. Like, what if enough people in the United Nations were racist against a single potential member that member couldn't be included? Or they were refugees from some nation state and, a dozen or two nations didn't like that nation. And so it doesn't make it any less racism because it's a lot of people, right? That's the way I see it. And I see Picard as like, well, let's respect life wherever it exists on a basic level, which is great because that's what he's going to embody throughout this show. Daj, Soji, Data, the synths, they were all people, is what he's going to argue, just like the Romulans, just like the Borg. So I like where this whole thing is going thematically. I think it's going to really validate fundamental values of the Trekkian orientation towards the universe.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going in the direction of some kind of moral validation of Picard. And Picard is the voice of, Star Trek morality.
Now, I also do think that her comment, sheer fucking hubris, was probably a little appropriate, given that he came back to Starfleet and it never occurred to him that they might be, at the very least, a little annoyed that he publicly declaimed them. And it sounds like, in a charitable reading of the Admiral, she and they, as Starfleet, were really struggling with the decision. Like, they were really trying to do the best, but they were forced into a corner. Or at least the writers want us to think that, right? I mean, if I had been the Federation, I would have lost some stars from my the scene from the trailer in Discovery Season 3 where it's like 3 stars are left on the Federation flag, or 6 stars or whatever. Like,
as if
maybe
the inevitable
that's why,
conclusion.
Yeah, maybe that's why they lost all their stars, because the Federation, as we see in that guy, was degrading, and the only way for it to stay intact was, well, actually, that kind of has to happen after the 31st century. Like, I think Picard has to redeem the Federation. He has to reinitiate some sort of massive values change or reorientation on a galactic level, because we do know that around the time of the Time Fleet with relativity and around the time of Daniels, that things are going pretty well, and the Federation is a thing, and it's respected, and then there's the Battle of Procyon 4 against the Sphere Builders, and there's a lot of solidarity there. So, I mean, the Federation is going to come out on top, and it's going to come back to where we want it to be, or where we'd like to imagine it has been via the Next Generation. It's just a question of how. And then it's a question of how does it come back again later on when it's just totally defeated, when Michael Burnham comes back in the, I guess it's the 30th? I don't even know what century she's in. 900 years plus the 23rd. Somebody else can do the math.
Very far up time.
It's very far up time, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're pointing at a very interesting issue, another interesting philosophical question here, which is that what if the goals of democracy conflict with the goals of anti-racism? because democratically, most of those planets in the Federation didn't want to do it. But I don't know, anti-racism, that makes it sound too small. I mean, like the moral quest of promoting all life, let's say. That might come in conflict with pure democracy, if that's what the Federation even has. We've never seen any evidence that the Federation is a democracy, but that was the conversation we've already had on this podcast.
Yeah, I would love to see some kind of a series that is just about the internal political dynamics of the Federation and how that all works, and how representatives are sort of elected or ambassadors are chosen or whatever.
I think it can't be a democracy because you never hear them talking about politics.
About what?
Yeah.
Politics?
Politics.
Yeah, they never talk about politics. There's no parties. They never talk about who's in the election. They never talk. They never have they never talk about the drama on social media about the politicians. The stuff that comes with democracy.
How many Star Trek series has it been? They just shy away from this thing as if it's. Yeah, you don't need to know that.
I am almost certain that we've evolved beyond social media by the time of the original series.
I don't know. You're sure social media isn't the future? Social media is the way into the Borg.
I think we've resolved the social media question at that point. So anyway, I mean,
the experience of being a Borg is like the experience of browsing Facebook.
It's already been assimilated. It has not been 5,843 days since the last assimilation.
I love that fucking thing. That's the coolest thing. It's been the coolest thing since the very first time we saw it in the trailer. I mean, it's like this many days since an accident. I mean, like, are they proud of that? Or is that meant to, like, scare people into realizing you could still be assimilated? I mean, what the fuck is that even there for? Other than as a cheeky joke for us, the viewers.
Well, I think they're having fun with it. It's more like an exhibit at this point. They say it's the artifact that we're studying, but you see all these people, it's almost as if they're there we want to see the Borg cube.
Tyler, it's not quite a zoo because they still wear those badges, and I am almost certain something horrible is going to go wrong at some point. Or I'm really hoping.
Of course it is. The Borg they're not dead completely. The cube is not completely cut off from the... Anyway, Hugh's going to show up in the next episode, I think. There may be some clues as to the state of the Borg.
I think the cube is awesome, by the way. I think the cube is the most elegant, beautiful, high production value Borg vehicle we've ever seen. It's also the largest.
Better than First Contact.
Yeah, even better than First Contact. That thing was made of plywood. I'm just
True.
kidding. I don't know what it was made out of. I'm pretty sure it was a practical model, though.
Plywood sets.
It was clearly made of human skin, yes.
We all got sunburnt and peeled.
So who else really appreciated when Picard says, I never really cared for science fiction. I guess I just didn't get it.
Just didn't get it. Yeah.
I mean, it's like the inhabitant of a fantasy novel, like suggesting to them that they should read fantasy novels. Like, it isn't going to make sense because they're already in it. It isn't going to generate any interesting thinking. Though apparently Asimov is definitely around.
Well, but like the fantasy literature in a fantasy world must be like even more fantasy, right? So the sci-fi literature in Star Trek, it must be just totally out of control, man. I really want to know what that's like.
You're right.
What exactly?
It's got to be like sci-fi on acid because our sci-fi isn't strong enough.
Yeah,
or something.
It's sci-fi squared.
So I like the Irish Romulan. Have you noticed that? The woman, Laris, she's got a Irish accent. That's really delightful.
Yeah. So we need to have a conversation about the alien ethnicities.
I mean,
there's an Asian Vulcan too.
So yeah, here's the thing. Just like on Discovery, we were shown that Klingons had a variety of different appearances. They are making an attempt to violate the long-held Star Trek practice of having literally every member of a species look the same way by bringing us to a greater level of realism, which I respect the intention behind that, even if the execution kind of fucks with 60 years of Star Trek history. Like all Romulans looked one way. Okay, well now they look more than one way. Fine. This is less racist. This is less unconsciously racist than Star Trek was previously, which to me that's laudable. That's a good sign that we're wanting to be less racist. So anyway, I also think, by the way, to their credit, that Laris and Zhaban, that they naturalized. They are ex-Tal Shiar agents. So what happened with them is they studied human customs, and they're trying to appear Vulcan maybe, or just like some regular Romulan refugees so as to not attract attention. And Romulan refugees, just like firstborn American or first-generation American-born Indian women, like my girlfriend, they're going to learn regular, normal English. They're going to, try to appear as natural as possible so as not to attract attention. And when you read the comics, Star Trek Picard Countdown, you find out that at the end of it, these two specifically, this husband and wife, they are looking for a place to lay low because they have broken with the Tal Shiar, obviously. I mean, that should be obvious, but they've broken very dramatically with the Tal Shiar, so the Tal Shiar is going to be looking for them. So, I mean, apparently they spend literally all of their time on Chateau Picard, like they just actually tend the grapes, because otherwise it would be insane for them to wander about Earth when they could just run into another Romulan refugee. But yeah, so anyway, I think the Irish Romulans are fine. I think that, what's that?
They spend all their time drunk on Chateau Picard.
I mean, why wouldn't you if you had that much free wine and you were a Romulan and you had a lot of bad memories of killing a lot of people as part of the Tal Shiar? Seems sensible to me. Let's see. So there was a new white-faced race that was showcased several times in the episode. They don't have a name yet, but they're interesting looking. And that's not a racist comment. I just don't have a name for them yet. The Discovery Constitution class is now canon in the 24th century, or maybe they're... See, I like in Star Trek Online, they actually have updated Constitution class ships, and one imagines that is something that they would do if they're doing this whole retro thing. And that I think it would be really cool to see a 25th century Constitution class. And I think it'd be even cooler to see Picard command one as a fucking admiral, like the Enterprise G or something. That would be cool. Well, it's probably the Enterprise H by now, but wait a second. The Enterprise J is from the 26th century, so one of these Enterprises has to be around for a very long time. Anyway.
Yeah, what happened to E?
What happened to E? Yeah, and F. Maybe E is still in operation. Maybe we'll get to see E. That would be really cool. So I like these transporter doorway things. I think this is the most used and ubiquitous transporters have been in any episode or series of Star Trek. And it's because they're planet-sized. It's how they get everywhere. And so we don't see anybody on a shuttlecraft. And usually when we're watching a Star Trek episode, they're in space. So they're traveling already in a ship. So pretty much, I mean, we've seen the transporters used 3 or 4 times this episode or something, or implied to be used or whatever, because apparently it's just really common. So that would be really interesting to see the global community that develops out of transporter access, meaning you can go from Okinawa to Paris to San Francisco. And so, okay, there are two other things that I really want to cover. The inappropriate displays of anger is the way that Dr. Moritz from The Stargazer, which was a great reference, he talks to Picard. And we all know it's Irumodic syndrome or something like it because of the irregularity on his parietal lobe. We know from all good things that this is something that has happened before, and it's very likely that Picard is dealing with something that's going to cause him to go senile or something like that. He's like, he doesn't care. So here's where the real character work about Picard goes. He doesn't care about the risk of his own, like, injury or illness or death in the face of what he believes to be a moral stand that he needs to take. And he's also letting go of his wet blanket, both in terms of the Romulans who've been taking care of him and also Starfleet. Like, he no longer has those resources to rely upon. And you hear him talk about he's not going to go to war for Riker or Troy or whatever because he doesn't want to put anybody else at risk. So he's carrying around the story that he is the cause for the death of people around him, and he's afraid of having it happen again. And even more so, he attracted, one might say, the experience of the death of Daj. Like, he's got this story, and it became a reality for him yet again, and it just became such a painful reality that now he's like, nope, I won't allow any of my really close, true friends around me because I'm a walking death trap. Something like that, maybe not as gruesomely phrased or as intense or harsh, but he's a little bit messed up, I think, in that aspect. Yeah. Like, he can't open up to his actual friends for help. And also, there's an extent to which he might be so old and so set in his ways that it's not clear to him when he's taking like risks that are about more than just him. Like, it was a mistake for him to slip up and blame Starfleet, given the political fallout that he faced, and given the fact that he's a member of a military organization where you don't question the policies of the organization. Now, he's Picard, so he will, but if he were just a good little soldier, or if he were being diplomatic, as we well know that he's capable of being, then he would have probably not let that slip. So also, if he's dealing with cognitive deficits and deficiencies, and he's going on a mission where his decisions could impact everyone, like the whole quadrant, maybe he should get that treated. And he's not concerned with that. And he also, as I said, maybe a little bit arrogantly assumes that Starfleet will want to help him. And I see him, right, Tyler, I've decided that Picard is basically our grandfather. Like, when I look at him, I think of Grandpa doing things.
Me too.
So
yeah.
I imagine him being generally well-meaning and very sharp, very smart, but also old, and things might escape him. His blind spots just might be thicker than those of normal people because of his age, which is fine, and especially given the potential for Irumodic syndrome. So anyway, what do you guys think?
I think he is a person, and therefore we should trust him.
What?
As opposed to what?
Trust the sense.
Oh, God. That's going to be the argument this season, isn't it?
But Richard, I'm officially recalling the shuttlecraft. I'm recalling the shuttlecraft because I don't want a racist on my planet. You can live on your own and die in that asbestos tent, as far as I'm concerned. You ugly racist pig.
I think
that's how
Richard is having
values life.
Richard is having a "This is SETI Alpha 5" moment, I think.
This is SETI Alpha 5.
The synths destroyed this planet, and now it's burning. And I can't go outside without feeling my flesh searing.
Actually, I think that's a clue as to why Richard has survived for so long. It's because the Federation also doesn't like augmented humans, of which one is Richard. pretty clear. Your secret's out, sir. That's the only way that somebody could survive Mars for 20 years. What?
Yeah,
you're saying that
go have lunch with Bashir.
For thousands of years, a secret loathing, and that I've spawned multiple generations of secret police societies?
No, I'm just saying that you're like Khan.
Oh. I thought you were saying I was like the Zhat Vash.
I mean, you might be. They might have actually been a manifestation of the Zhat Vash. Who knows? I have no reason to believe that, or no evidence. So coming back to the very end, I like Moritz. I enjoy him. I found some CBS All Access coding issues, which was annoying. Halfway through the episode, it just stopped like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, come on, guys. Let's see. The part between Narek and Soji, that was cool. I mean, because she's very attractive, number one. Number 2, I like the line, can you keep a secret? And she's like, yes. And he's like, so can I.
Yep.
You thought I was going to tell you something. I am not. I like that part.
Just aggressively denying in his smooth Romulan demeanor. Just trying to, oh, God, I missed Romulans. I really did.
I really appreciate Romulans. I like that we're going into them. And then my last thought about the whole episode is, for her, on her part, she does seem to be a person. Why? Because she has an experience that's very common to people, especially in the modern age where sex is casual and often, of like that space of novelty and full instinctual surrender to like her attraction and this slight sleepless recklessness where they stay up all night. I mean, who hasn't here experienced that and enjoyed that? That's a thing that happens to us people. So, anyway, yeah, I'm done with my comments on the episode. Your balls, gentlemen.
I like Picard's visitor pass.
You like his what?
Visitor pass.
Oh, yeah, the Delta Shield, but he has it sideways.
Yeah, it's grounded. It's a grounded Delta Shield.
Yeah.
It isn't going up into space.
That's right.
Nope.
It's staying down here where it's safe, away from the synths.
It's going to the exit sign.
Richard, we could probably go visit that the Starfleet command. That's a real building.
Yeah, well, is it in Marin or Oakland? I don't know.
It's unclear where the hell Starfleet command is.
Guys, I found something I appreciate. Did you notice the Golden Gate Bridge is just solar panels?
Yeah, why do they need solar panels?
Clean energy. Warp reactors. I don't know. Maybe that runs out after a while.
That lithium crystals, they're temporary. They don't last. Yeah, I guess.
Solar energy just happens until the star explodes. Oh, God, eventually everyone does.
Man, this is the first time a philosophical question has really eaten at me in, like, years.
Yeah? The solar panel?
No! Is F8 a person?
Yeah.
Fate's a person, yeah.
Well, I mean, so by law of deductive inference, everything that Richard believes is wrong, and Richard believes that F8 is not a person. Therefore, F8 must be a person. Okay,
wait a second.
I feel better now.
Okay.
I feel better.
Say that.
I feel better now.
Say that everything I say is wrong. Okay.
No, everything that you believe is wrong.
Everything I believe is wrong. Do you know what's coming? Do you know what's coming?
What?
Do you know what I believe? Can you handle this? Can your logical system handle this? I believe that I myself am wrong.
Oh.
What now?
Hey,
what now?
Louis, what are you going to do when someone divides by 0, Louis?
Oh, yeah. This is how you blow up a super intelligence.
This is exactly
how you blow up everything.
On multiple occasions. What I love is Picard being straight up completely bald. Like he's just not even trying anymore. That is really satisfying to me.
He hasn't been trying for a while, I think.
Maybe he's trying and he just gave up.
Remember when Gene Roddenberry wouldn't cast him because he was bald?
Really?
And then later he described when someone asked him, why wouldn't he just it's the 24th century, why wouldn't he just find a way to fix it? I'm sure they have ways to fix that. And he's like, in the 24th century, they wouldn't care that he's bald.
Exactly.
Well,
I do. I think that man looks damn sexy with almost no hair.
Yeah? You've never seen him with hair?
You have to grab onto his strong moral center.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what you're saying, but I'm definitely disturbed by it, whatever it is.
Yeah, but Picard's shiny bald head is a mirror in which you see your true moral self.
And that, my friends, is the moral conclusion of this episode.
When you stare at
clearly
bald head, Picard's bald head stares back into you.
Did anybody else see the symbol for the new Romulan Empire?
I missed it.
Huh.
It's a symbol of like a bird, but it's no longer clutching two balls because Romulus and Remus were destroyed.
Mm.
It's like the Romulan Empire lost its balls.
Castrated.
Yeah.
It's now called the Romulan Free State, which is interesting.
Because their government is
apparently it's only
gone.
interesting to me.
No, it's interesting. We just gotta unpack it.
Yeah. Does anybody else notice that the 2399 era uniform collars are covered in little Delta shields?
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
True.
That's a nice little touch. I guess they're getting even more bored with logos.
Uniform design.
Yeah.
All right, Richard. Well, what do you think is the thing that the Zhat Vash, the big secret?
Oh. I think it's that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh, yes. He's murdered. That air of silence is correct.
Actually, you know what? You know what I think? You know what I think the great secret of the Zhat Vash is?
Tell us.
Oh, no.
I really want to know.
I'll only tell you after we finish giving our ratings. So this episode for me was an 8 out of 10. It wasn't super exciting. It was the middle part of an Act 1. So, I'm okay with saying it wasn't a perfect episode. The moment of compassion, do you guys have any candidates for that throughout this?
It'd have to be for F8 and those poor people that he killed.
Yeah, the moment F8 snaps that guy's neck, I felt compassion for F8, I think. That's my moment. I felt real.
Really? So you're on the side of F8 being a person, Tyler?
Because either he was programmed to kill or he was given an order to kill that he could not countermand.
Actually, you know what I thought when he killed that guy?
Huh.
He was really efficient.
Oh, yeah. That was a clean snap. Like, I
mean,
don't know how many
just real quick. I know that
how many vertebrae he dislocated. It was.
I am not supposed to feel this way about that scene, but I just so appreciate F8's like deadly precision. I mean, and efficiency. Deadly precision and efficiency. There you go. And if those aren't hallmarks of people, then I don't know what is. People are generally deadly precise and efficient.
He also it's a lesson in safety too. Did you catch that? Always lock your tools up.
Now you're making a Richard style joke. Always like,
well, I think you'd appreciate that because F8 just effortlessly cuts them down. I mean, he could have just snapped their necks.
It's funny, Tyler, because you were saying always keep your tools locked up, and you were talking about the tools on the wall, but Richard and I really definitely heard it as keep your F8s locked up. Because that's a tool
then
too.
You'll meet with a terrible fate. Wink.
Actually, I really okay. I'm going to go with this. I really want there to be a tool time segment of the Home Improvement show with Tim Allen and him interviewing F8.
Awkwardly smiling.
Because honestly, they're being treated as tools, so functionally they are tools. As disgusting as that is for me, a supporter of their personhood. Along with the moral center of this show and the Star Trek reality, Jean-Luc Picard. Which, by the way, Richard, you're against Jean-Luc Picard. You are with the Dystopian Federation. You are the one who will be reformed by the end of this series.
We'll see about that.
You know what I have to say about your belief in the non-personhood of F8?
What?
Sheer fucking hubris.
Oh. Hey.
That is going to be my new favorite phrase.
I'm not the one that's sitting in a nice air-conditioned facility on the planet Earth.
You refuse every refugee ship. They have literally sent a dozen different ships over the years.
I'm telling you, it's a hellscape here. I'm living the consequences of your high-minded morality.
You're just there. Richard, we are fast becoming red letter media with this plot line. This is something awesome. This is truly unheard of. We now have a serialized plot for Clever Orbits. This is great. We need to milk this and have as many offshoots of this as possible. Oh.
Burning horribly on Mars with Richard Futrell.
8 out of 10. We have sort of a moment of compassion. That's another thing. For all its success, I did not actually have a moment of compassion with this episode. Like, intellectually, abstractly, I feel like I should have had that for F8, but I didn't. Oh, damn it. I already know. Richard's going to use that as evidence that F8 was not a person. Okay, so well, let's just pretend like you did that already, and you don't have to rub your nose in it.
No need. You already said it.
All right, Tyler, what do you rate this episode?
This episode's pacing makes a snail traveling in any direction look like warp 10.
So you didn't like?
Oh, it was a great episode.
It's a 10-hour movie, man. I mean, I would be okay if we were to say, hey, let's just hang up our hats and not watch anymore until it's all on CBS All Access. But then I wouldn't be able to live with myself because at 3 a.m. every Thursday morning when the new episode drops, I would probably be awake and kicking myself. Are you watching it when it drops too? It is so worth it, by the way, to be one of the first.
Last time the last episode dropped, I just couldn't really sleep the whole night through. I had to wake up.
Me neither. I told my subconscious mind I was going to wake up at 3 a.m., and I woke up exactly at 3 a.m. Like, I could barely contain myself going to bed. That's the earliest I've gone to bed in probably a year. Anyway, this show, man.
We needed
this show, sheer fucking awesomeness.
Yes.
I think that's going to become our other recurring plot line. It's sheer fucking word here.
We're gonna sheer fucking everything under the sun.
We're gonna find every way we can use that phrase. Okay, so Tyler, what was your rating? Oh wait, your ratings always go last. Okay, Richard, what was your rating?
I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Okay, so we're aligned. We're in agreement. It's good to agree with you on something again, Richard.
Yeah.
It's good to be family again.
There you go.
Tyler, what's your rating?
Look in Picard's bald head and you'll know.
So, all right. I think we should conclude the sheer fucking greatness of this episode by me revealing the secret of the Zhat Vash. The secret of the Zhat Vash that they loathe is that Richard's mother is a whore.